Okay, so if you're a serious hunter, you know this feeling, right? That cycle of frustration. You put in, hundreds of hours scouting public land, planning everything just so, fighting off the crowds, only to have your whole season kind of blown up by surprise factors,
Yeah.
a sudden pressure spike, maybe some rogue hunter wanders through, or just, zero game management. Massive effort, zero control.
That really is the core tension, isn't it? Our sources, looking at the modern hunting scene, they highlight exactly that problem. Land prices, they just keep climbing, skyrocketing, really.
Hmm,
Puts ownership way out of reach for most people. But at the same time, hunters are just hitting their limit. They're tired of the hassle and, frankly, the lower quality you often find on high-pressure public spots, or just how shaky permission hunting can be.
right. So the market does what markets do. It responds, and that's what our deep dive is about today. The real benefits of getting yourself a private hunting lease. We're looking at what, like 24 reasons. The sources lay out 25 specific drivers pushing hunters this way. It really feels like the necessary middle ground, doesn't it, between owning the land, which is often impossible, and the free-for-all of public access.
What's really interesting here, I think, is how well leasing deals with risk. I mean, look, no hunting is ever guaranteed, right? There's no crystal ball.
Yeah.
But a private lease, it absolutely minimizes those unforeseen risks you get when you have no real say, no contract. It's basically an investment in control
Yeah.
and in quality.
Right.
And that fundamentally changes the whole hunting experience.
Okay, let's unpack that, starting with the biggest roadblock for most folks. The money. Buying hunting land is just insanely expensive and it's a massive commitment. How does leasing actually, tackle that huge financial hurdle?
Well, it really simplifies things quite a bit. Land ownership, it's heavy. It's a long-term thing. You're talking mortgages, property taxes year after year, unavoidable repairs, big liability concerns. That's like decades of responsibility. Leasing, it's much cleaner, more streamlined. Your financial exposure is basically limited to the lease contract term. Simple as that.
And that flexibility, our sources really hammer that point home. It seems incredibly appealing. When you buy, you are locked in. But with leasing, especially that standard, say, 1-year contract, you get this amazing operational flexibility.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And most good leases, they'll give the hunter the first right of renewal. So
Right.
what that means is if the property's working out for you, you can usually lock it down again, often before anyone else even knows it might be available.
Ah, okay.
But if it's not delivering, or maybe your job changes, life happens, right? You can just walk away at the end of the term. Finding a new property is so much faster, way less hassle than trying to sell real estate. That adaptability is, I think, really key for today's hunter who might be more mobile.
But hang on, leases themselves aren't always cheap, right? If one person can't swing the cost of a decent lease alone, what's the strategy? How do the sources say hunters get around that?
Yeah, good point. And that's where cost efficiency through partnership really shines. Leasing kind of inherently helps solve that affordability piece through cost sharing. If you hunt alone, okay, you pay 100%, obviously. But hunters who team up, find a good group of partners they trust, they can split the lease price. And not just the price, but insurance costs, maybe habitat work expenses, other little admin loads. It suddenly makes private land access affordable on, well, a lot more budgets.
Okay, now I got to jump in here with a bit of, let's say, friction. Based on what we read, if group leasing is the answer, what are the potential headaches? The logistical challenges hunters need to watch out for. Sounds great on paper, but sharing property, that can definitely lead to tension.
And a very fair point. And yeah, the sources don't really sugarcoat it. Cost sharing is a huge plus financially, no doubt. But
Yeah.
you absolutely have to choose your partners very selectively, like really vet them. Because one bad apple, a partner who pushes the land too hard or ignores the group's agreed upon harvest plan, they can ruin the whole lease experience for everyone. The sources really stress that the initial agreement needs to be rock solid. Spell out the usage rules, guest policies, how the money's split, everything, just to keep the peace and make sure you actually meet the biological goals for the property.
That makes total sense. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit, move past the financials, and look at what's actually pushing hunters towards leasing in the first place. What are those big frustrations people keep hitting on properties where they don't have a lease?
Oh, the complaints are pretty universal. If you're relying on, say, permission ground, that handshake deal from a farmer or landowner, that whole arrangement is just inherently fragile. You might be dealing with landowners who are, let's say, moody. They can pull your access overnight, no warning. You're often competing with other hunters the owner also said yes to, maybe without telling you, and there's zero guarantee of access next season. You're basically always on the hunt for the next spot. It's stressful.
Yeah, and then there's public land. That high pressure situation just leads to burnout, doesn't it? Pure fatigue.
Yeah,
Hunters get so tired of the negative encounters, like walking in to find someone already sitting in the stand you scouted for weeks. Or
exactly.
just the sheer pressure pushing all the game nocturnal. And then, the result is often diminished deer herds, poor success rates, and just general disappointment.
Which brings us right to the core benefit of leasing, gaining quality and control. Because that lease contract, it legally regulates the hunting pressure. That immediately gives you access to better ground, potentially. And that access, it often connects directly with the chance to hunt bigger bucks, and maybe more importantly, over time, experience better buck age structures.
Okay, hang on. We just hit two slightly technical terms there. Buck age structure. For someone listening who maybe isn't deep into property management lingo, what exactly do you mean by buck age structure, and why is that such a key thing here?
Yeah, great question. So buck age structure, it basically just refers to how the male deer, the bucks, are spread out across different age classes on a property. On heavily hunted public land, for instance, most bucks get shot when they're young, like 1.5 years old, maybe 2.5. Small racks, smaller bodies. When you lease and you control the pressure, you can set rules. You can decide, okay, we're letting bucks walk until they're older.
Yeah.
This allows more bucks to survive into those 3, 4, even 5-plus-year-old age classes. And that means bigger average body weights, much bigger antlers, and generally healthier deer populations. It shifts the focus from just quantity, any buck, to quality, mature animals.
Gotcha. So the lease isn't just about getting through the gate, it's about becoming, in a way, the temporary manager of that piece of ground. Leasing gives the hunter, as the sources say, better controlling your hunting land. It's like the next best thing to actually owning it outright.
Precisely. That control piece, that's the engine that drives the quality improvements. It directly lets you regulate the hunting pressure on your lease. If you and your group manage that property for, say, 5 years, and you decide we're only harvesting bucks that are 4 years old or older, you know that rule can actually stick because you or your group are the decision makers exclusively.
And I'm guessing that control also makes the actual time spent hunting, the field experience, better too.
Oh, absolutely. Because, with a high degree of certainty, that other hunters aren't going to suddenly show up and pressure the woods on that perfect evening or jump into your prime spot. That control lets you be more patient in your hunt plans. You can wait for the perfect wind, the perfect conditions. It reduces that anxiety, that risk of someone else stumbling onto your target deer first just because they felt rushed. It takes away that competitive stress.
And tying this back to the group leasing idea, the lease structure itself gives you that power to choose your hunting partners selectively, right? Unlike public land where anyone can be there, or even a loose permission deal where the landowner might let others on. With a lease, you decide exactly who else sets foot on that property, which reinforces not only your management goals, but also safety.
It's a really powerful distinction, yeah.
Yeah.
And getting that control often starts with just being able to select the right property in the first place.
Okay, let's talk about selection then. Finding prime hunting land to buy. That's tough. It's scarce, it's expensive. Our sources really emphasize that the availability of leases is much, much broader than opportunities to buy land. Why is that? What's driving that?
It's largely because landowners, well, even those who absolutely love their property, they're often looking for ways to, monetize their land or maybe get an agricultural tax break, something. This just creates a much larger supply of potential lease opportunities compared to the number of properties actually listed for sale. And that wider availability, it allows a serious hunter to be patient, to wait and find the exact right lease location for their specific needs.
So you're not just settling. You can actually tailor your search. Think about distance from home, the right acreage, maybe a specific county known for quality, even down to the habitat type without having to face that impossible price tag of actually buying it.
Exactly right. And that ability to lease, it's also the main gateway for securing an out-of-state place to hunt. Maybe your home state just doesn't offer the trophy potential you're looking for, or maybe access is super limited. Leasing lets you secure good ground across state lines. It dramatically expands your potential hunting territory without needing, a massive down payment for property hundreds of miles away.
Okay, now let's really drill down on that critical point we mentioned earlier, safety and liability. This seems huge. With those handshake deals on permission properties, you've got no contracts, usually no specific insurance mention. There are major liability risks there for both sides, right? The landowner and the hunter. How does leasing just wipe those concerns off the table?
Yeah, this is a massive benefit legally and financially. When you go through a reputable land leasing service or use a solid contract, the whole structure of the lease agreement is built to shield everyone involved. The absolute key ingredient is the comprehensive liability insurance policy that's typically packaged right with the lease.
And our sources were pretty specific about the level of that protection, weren't they?
They were. Often you're looking at something substantial, like a $5 million liability insurance policy. And crucially, this policy doesn't just cover the hunters if one of them gets hurt. It shields the landowner completely from liability too. So if a hunter is injured while legally using the land under the lease, or maybe accidentally causes some property damage, the landowner is protected. This basically transforms what could be a really risky permission setup into a sound, secure business arrangement for both the hunter and, importantly, the landowner.
Wow. I mean, that protection alone seems like it reduces more risk than, I don't know, planting a bunch of food plots could ever attract deer. It's just an immediate game changer compared to a simple handshake. And that contractual exclusivity we talked about, that also automatically improves the overall safety factors on the property, yeah?
Absolutely. When access is clearly spelled out in writing,
Mm.
it inherently limits the maximum number of people who can be on that property at any one time. Everybody knows the boundaries, everyone is usually vetted by the group, everyone's playing by the same set of rules. It just enhances the overall safety way beyond what you could ever guarantee in a public access area or even on loosely managed permission ground.
So if we kind of pull all these threads together, the control, the quality, the safety, it seems to lead towards what the sources suggest might be the most rewarding part of leasing. And it's not really about the money saved or even the size of the antlers. It's more about this psychological shift, right? Moving from being just a temporary visitor to becoming, well, a temporary steward of that land.
Stewarding over the deer and the other wildlife. Yeah, it's a really powerful mental shift. Leasing gives you the freedom and, importantly, the power for microtuning habitat management. Assuming you get the landowners okay, which is usually part of the deal if you're responsible, you suddenly have the ability to actually plant those food plots you've dreamed about, to go in and remove invasive species that are choking out native browse, maybe do some hinge cutting to create better bedding cover, establish mineral sites properly. You're not just passing through anymore. You're actively working to improve that specific environment.
That's a great way to put it. It's like shifting from just renting a hotel room to actually decorating and improving an apartment you're living in for a while. You have some agency. You care more.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And this active participation, this stewardship, it serves a dual purpose, really. Yes, it enhances the habitat, which usually leads to better hunting down the road, but it's also absolutely crucial for maintaining long-term property access. Think about it from the landowner's perspective. When they see a responsible, organized group that's paying the lease fee on time and actively improving their property, they are highly motivated to renew that contract year after year. Why wouldn't they?
Which then naturally leads to crafting better relationships with landowners over time. It becomes a partnership. The landowner feels compensated and respected, the property's being cared for, maybe even improved, and the hunter, or the hunting group, has the time needed to build that invaluable trust. That solidifies access for years to come, something you just never get reliably on public or standard permission land.
Exactly. The sources are pretty clear on this. The hunter, in this leasing scenario, becomes an asset to the landowner, not just a guest or potentially a liability.
So wrapping this all up, what's the bottom line for the hunter out there who's maybe thinking about making a change?
We've hit on the flexibility, the quality control, the safety aspects, the chance for real, hand-on management. I mean, the core takeaway seems pretty undeniable, doesn't it? A private hunting lease offers that necessary control, those quality opportunities, and the security that comes with managing private land. But without the absolutely massive cost, the mortgage burden, or that decades-long liability you get with ownership.
And, this raises a really interesting final question, I think, something that goes a bit deeper, maybe, into the satisfaction of hunting itself. Our sources highlight that this opportunity for the hunter to actually enhance the habitat, to be the temporary decision maker on that piece of land, that might be the most rewarding part of leasing for many people. So the question for you, the listener, is, does taking on that responsibility fundamentally change the personal reward of hunting? That's a really deep thought to end on. Does actively managing that little piece of the landscape, even temporarily, move the whole pursuit beyond just, filling tags? Does it elevate it into something more like a personal, localized form of conservation, a kind of temporary land management?
I think for many people it really does. You suddenly become invested in the health of that entire ecosystem, not just the game animals.
So if you are feeling tired of the diminished herds, the constant competition, those unpredictable factors that can plague public land or permission hunting, our deep dive today suggests that investigating the leasing process isn't just another option to consider. It might actually be the logical next step toward reclaiming quality, control, and maybe even a deeper connection to the hunt. Thanks for diving in with us today.